a super secret question that I will reveal at the end of the show. Super secret compartment of his secret box, yes. Ah, dearie me. So there are a number of things, really. Values. I think I just need to stream the whole screen at this point, rather than just the overlay. Screen 1. There we go. As there are lots of things to be done. Why am I not connecting? Connect me! Connect me to the server! Okay, connected. Wonderful. No connect for you. Shut up, Dynasty. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit like royalty-free background music on, because that helps. Yeah, that'll do. Nobody likes you, evening mealsty. What? Need a little bit of Monica in my life, a little bit of Erica by my side. All right. So, as some of you may know me, some of you may not, I am the sheriff, part of the Hutt Cartel, and we came top 6 in the championship. But it came to my attention that there are a number of things that the community are potentially unaware of, and I'm going to use this point in time to just go over some of the drills, strategies, super secret squadron secrets within the game, and just go over a few things. Hopefully some new members of the community will find it interesting, and it'll help them along to get to a competitive standard, and hopefully it works out for those that are still in it, still in the competitive scene, and then we'll go from there. So the Hutt Cartel is actually quite a technical team, like really technical. So one of the things that we've done for a long time is actually go into the values and figure out exactly what's happening at what point. Now, this is not finished by any stretch, and the Plasburst has got its own chart, but this is essentially the stats from each of the cannons on each of the ships. Yeah, I even tested guided. Yeah. I went through everything. And it's overcharged and not overcharged as well. Because I wanted to make sure what we were actually seeing was accurate. So this is accurate to 2 decimal places, and you can see that in every situation, overcharge does 25% more damage regardless of range compared to standard shots. And it's interesting to see that each of the different kinds of cannons for different ships also have a number of shots that they fire per second, as well as the damage per shot. Now, there are various multipliers and things that can be applied throughout the game for this anyway, but this is really interesting. And especially for me, my favorite part of these stats is the Y-wing. You can, hopefully it's viewable on stream. Oh, thanks for announcing your retirement, guys. Maybe we'll do, oh no, don't want to do that. How do we zoom in on this? That's not going to let me do it, is it? Oh well. But one of my favorites about this whole thing is the Y-wing and the TIE bomber. Now, the Y-wing and the TIE bomber do 15% more damage with their ion cannons than anything else in the game. Any other ion thing other than ICT. ICT is different. but every other ion primary in the game does 15% less damage. And when you're at 100 meters distance with your ion cannons on your Y-wing and your TIE bomber, it actually does 300 damage per shot. That's almost as much as an ICT shot, which is nuts, especially when you consider the TIE bomber to have essentially unlimited energy. So you can just apply that constantly. So if you get hit once by... if you get hit once up close, that's crazy. It's basically like a slightly worse plasburst, but with ions. It's nuts. And yeah, so it went over all the distances as well. So these cover, these go from, most of them go from either 0 to 600 meters with the plasburst, or 100 meters to 1,000 meters with standard cannons, ion cannons, rotaries, guided cannons. And then there are a couple of other ones, like the burst cannons. They obviously, as most of you will know, have the same damage regardless of distance, up to 1,000 meters. And that's also the same for the guided burst cannon. 13 degrees and cloudy where I'm at. Oh, yeah. I don't want to show you that. That's too much information. Too much. Too much. And then the rapid fire cannons on the A-wing from 600 to 200 meters as well. Too many secrets. Yes, yes. But yeah, these are some of the stats that we found on the individual actual ships. The plasburst really is an interesting creature because it only fires one shot, so it is a shotgun essentially. But based on distance, there's a multiplier that gets applied to that. So I've actually done somewhat of a graph for it. So depending on the charge time, that'll give you the amount of damage that you get. So you have your multiplier here on the left, so you've got 0.25 as a multiplier for 0 seconds, and you don't do anything. Like, that's if you held it for like 0.1 second or something stupid. It's ridiculous. If you held it for 1 second, then you get a 21 multiplier. So your total damage is 882. But if you hold it for 2 seconds, and it only goes up to 2 seconds, it doesn't go any further than that, then you get a 32 multiplier, and that gets you to 1344. But if you want, that's good for one-shotting people. But if you actually want to do sustained DPS, then it's actually better to hold it for 1 second. That 1 second is like the key point at actually smashing out that damage consistently and quickly, because it's just more DPS. It's so much more DPS. And then, as I say, it looks very similar for the Empire, but I've only been able to do the laser cannon and the rotary cannon for the TIE bomber at the moment. I'll fill out the rest of these and make it available to everyone later on. Now on to the slightly bigger, slightly more fun stuff. This is where I'll zoom out a bit, and it takes a while to load. And we've got a lot of things here. But this is Hutt Cartel's... yeah, dear Lord, indeed. This is our super secret mess of strategies and drills and research and everything else. And everybody's contributed to this. This isn't like just mine or anything like that. We went over this, and this is actually the culmination of all of our efforts and work to a certain extent for the past 9 months. We started this when we were allowed into the Cal Cup in the Winter Minor, And then since then, we've just added to it, grown on it, adapted, thrown some old strats out. Yeah, blame Ice God. Yeah, he's the one that kind of started this, and then we just kept going with it. But there's some fun stuff, some failures, some ridiculous strategies. Um, ancient cave drawings. Yeah, yeah. So we'll go through it all, and we'll start with the easy stuff first. So we actually have a section where we were supposed to draw out all of the individual flight paths in their groups. Is this all locked? Oh no, I'm not logged in. Give me a second. Why am I not logged in? Log me in, please. I wish to log in. Huh, wrong email? That one? Right, there we go. Sorry about that. Wow. Yeah, so here is where we wanted to actually map out the individual AI flight paths for each map and come up with extremely specific strategies for each of them. Because as you know, or as some of you know, like a lot of the maps, well, every single one of the maps is different from each other. They might have some similar characteristics, but they all behave differently. And that is something that I definitely enjoy that the developers did. F11 word. Oh well. So yeah, we were gonna create a basic map of the individual maps like Gallatin, and then we take. Oh, I can't duplicate it. Oh no, it's fine. There we go. And we'd take each of the individual AI as a group, and then we'd move those about the place. And we'd map exactly where they were going to go. And we were going to do that for every single map. And then that also includes skill shots. So I think this is Zyphas's video? Ice Gods. Okay. He went over one of them, but we've got the rest of them somewhere as well. And then we also did this. We also found out all the turrets, all the hull and shields, how much the turrets are worth, how many turrets, what kind of turrets, and how they behave. So they're just copies of each other. It's just different skins. So the Raider, don't know why that's still called an Imperial Raider, but whatever. So we've got our Corvette and our Raider. They both have a hull of 21,000, and they have shields of 17. Each have got 14 lasers, and each one of those laser turrets is worth 4% hull. So especially TIE bombers attacking the Corvette, a cheeky little Goliath missile to this turret here is huge because it takes out all 7 of them, and you get the 1,000 damage from the Goliath anyway. So it's pretty big. That's a lot of damage. You take it from 100 to minus 1,000, which is like 5%, and then minus an extra 28%. You take off like 30-35% like instantly. It's a lot of damage. The Raider, the Imperial Raider, is a lot harder to hit because the turrets have kind of got this. They're kind of like pop-up headlights. They kind of come out and they shoot, and they've got these little like roofs on them, and they're difficult to destroy because they're just a little bit harder to see and they're a little bit harder to hit. But again, a Golo, a Goliath somewhere in the middle will deal significant damage and take out at least a few of the turrets. It's just a bit harder. And then we've got the frigates. Frigates and the cruisers. Their hull is 48,000 apiece, 30,000 shields. Turrets, 13 of them, 2 missile turrets, 11 laser, and each of these are worth 1% to the overall health of the frigate. So you're doing effectively 480 damage. But it's important to note that stripping these turrets, I've seen a lot of teams do this. When you're stripping turrets, a lot of teams tend to use lasers to strip the turrets, and personally, I think this is a mistake. This really is a mistake because some of you may have seen my actual full diagrams that I've sent of each of these ships, and I've put that on Reddit. But I color-coded them and I put them in different shapes to represent different types of turrets. So in this particular image here on the Imperial cruiser, this green dot represents a missile turret, and the pink ones on all of them actually represent just standard turrets. Now, as far as I've been able to tell, there's no actual difference other than profile for any of the turrets on raiders or frigates, and for that matter on the flagships as well, apart from the turbo lasers. Those are different. Now, when you attack these, if you fire a Goliath and a little bit of laser fire from a Y-wing onto this missile turret, it'll take out all of these. All 5 just with the Goliath, and if the laser fire hits as well, then you'll take out this one as a 6th, and that's how you should be taking out the turrets on a cruiser. You shouldn't be using laser fire from the X-wings or anything else. It should be the Y-wing's job to burn the turrets with the Goliaths, or the TIE bomber's job to burn the turrets with Goliaths on the Nebulon Beast. Now, the approach is much the same, it's just harder to hit. This is a symmetrical ship, essentially. So there's a missile turret on the top, and there's a missile turret on the bottom. You hit both of those, you've hit 11 out of 13 turrets. It's pretty big. And on here, there's a missile turret at the back on the Nebulon. You aim for that above, and then where this little pink turret is here, on the underside of the Nebulon, there's another missile turret there. If you aim your second Goliath there, then you're going to take out most of the turrets that are in that vicinity as well. So the approach, the theory for it is the same for both sides. The approach differs slightly. It's much harder to take out the turrets on the Nebulon B versus the Imperial frigate. Imperial cruiser, sorry. But again, it's much easier to actually shoot this thing because it's so much bigger than this. Because you've also got to take into account the snap-on effect, the auto-aim that you have with all ships, all lasers, apart from Plasburst. And even if the turret's destroyed, you still got to be careful because it'll kind of still snap to it occasionally. And that's just wasted time. It's wasted damage. So leave your turrets to your Goliaths and just try and deal raw damage to it. My favorite spots for attacking the Nebulon is actually on the sides at the top, here and here. And can I pencil it? On this side. Nope, that is not big enough. There we go. On this side and on this side, and just along this section here. You attack that, and there's no turrets along this section. I mean, there's a little one on top here, there's a few on the bottom, and then there's a few on the side. But that is it. And then that'll mean that you're maximizing your damage output. But that covers the frigates and the cruisers. And then we've got the actual flagships themselves. Now, these obviously differ in profile significantly. And the way that you approach taking out the systems, the various subsystems that they have. It's much easier to attack an MC and take the subsystems. The thing that the Hutt Cartel had back in January, February was that you'd come in, attack a shield gen, and then immediately peel down in your TIE bomber and just take out power. And obviously now we know that, you know, ion missile and ion lasers do the job much quicker. But if you've got a TIE bomber on either side and they just destroy the shield gen and then just look down and dump everything that they have left into the power, it's gone. So you've taken out 3 subsystems crazy quickly. Whereas the ISD is a lot harder because there's just more distance to cover for all of them. And then they actually differ in the number of turrets as well. So the MC has got 51 turrets. It's got 12 turbo lasers instead of the 8 that the ISD has. Got 6 ion on both sides, 6 missile turrets on both sides. And then the ISD has 24 laser turrets, but the MC has got 27. And that's interesting because it means that even though the MC has still got more turrets and they're on a much smaller profile, meaning that the rate of fire, meaning that the fire upon players and surrounding enemies should be more concentrated, it's still easier to attack. It's still easier to melt. And then obviously they've both got tractor beams, 2 of, and each of the turrets is worth 0.5% of the hull. So you're only really hitting somewhere between 20 and 25% if you take out all the turrets. And that's a tall order because they've each got like 750 to 1,000 damage. Is it really only one indestructible turret? From what I've seen, yeah, but it's difficult to test. Essentially what I've seen is that when you approach the superstructure, the invisible laser bolt that flies towards you comes at you from wherever you're closest. Really, there's no kind of set position that it comes out of. So that'll essentially follow you around and try and shoot you. And it's the same for the frigates as well. They've both got an indestructible laser in the middle of them that'll just keep shooting whatever's closest. And actually, to extend that, the Raiders don't. The Raider and the Corvette do not have an indestructible laser. If you take out all the turrets on them, they're mute. They won't shoot anything. They'll still apply passive damage, but they won't actually shoot anything. They'll just be sat there. But by the time that you want to melt the Raider or the Corvette, you know, you're dishing in the damage anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But it's just interesting to know. Each of the tractor beams on the flagships, they're worth 1% each. Thanks, Wasabi. Appreciate you retiring in my channel. And yeah, the range is kind of correct, but also wrong here. I've put 2,000 meters. Does the indestructible laser deal more damage when out of phasings? Good question. I don't actually know the answer to that one. I think it's the same. I think it's the same, actually. But what happens when you're out of phasing is you're usually getting shot by more than one turret, so it feels like it's more. And maybe the turbo lasers get a little bit of a buff as well, but every time that I've tried to out of phase one of the frigates and they've got their turrets up, then I feel fine with that. And I've also successfully been able to out of phase ISDs in a Y-wing with rotary, multi-lock, and Goliath whilst targeting is still up. So it's a bit weird how it works. But back to the range for a second. The invisible, indestructible laser turret that's in the middle of the whole thing, that actually does have a range of 2,000 meters. The rest of the turrets don't. The rest of the turrets have only got a 1,500 meter range. So that means you can actually get, whilst you can get to the 2,000 meter range and you will be shot, you can dodge it because it's only a single bolt that's firing at you. And I've tested that many, many, many times. It's only when you start to get under that 1,500 meter range that you'll start to get shot. Now, there's a caveat with this as well, which is really interesting as well, is that when you start your run and you go into that 1,500 meter danger zone, what happens is there's a brief delay before you actually start to get shot, because the turrets and the missile turrets, it all has to like rotate and then lock onto you. So you do have a little bit of a grace period actually. It's not long, it's only about a second or two at most, but it does provide you with enough time to dip in and out, try some things, and see how it goes. And especially if you've got 2 or 3 people and you come from different angles, then you're forcing the rotation of the turrets and you're forcing them to try and lock onto a new target, which just plays havoc with the thing. And that's pretty funny, to be honest. But if you really want to practice and see how the indestructible laser in the middle of the chassis works, then what I suggest people try and what I suggest people do is they jump into a custom and make the shields on the flagship or the frigates or the raiders, make the shields like 0.1 and just take out the turrets and then flip the phase and just bounce around the thing. You'll usually, well, no, not usually. You'll find that you'll only get shot by one laser, and it's not very accurate. It's only when there's essentially overlapping fields of fire from multiple turrets that you start to truly get in danger. A couple more retirements there. Thanks, guys. Right, I've been talking for a while. I just need to get a drink, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so why you no retire, heck? Why you no retire? No, I wish it was gin. I could do with a bit of gin. Anyone got any questions on the ships and the ship stats? Like these ones. Otherwise, I am moving on. Okay, moving on. All right. Oh, this bit's fun. I like this bit. So these were some of the original images that I created to illustrate where the subsystems were and where the turrets are. I made a boo-boo when I actually created this first. I missed the 2 turrets that were on the side next to the shield gen. And they're on either side of the MC. So there's 2 there and there's 2 there. So I've had to add those back in retroactively a little bit. And then what I'm actually trying to do here is create a map for where all the weak spots show up. Because some of them seem to all turn up in the same place, weirdly. But what I've also recently found out is that the weak spots that show up are just a plate that gets stuck onto the profile of the ship. Like, there's nothing like really fancy going on with it. It's just like a random plate. So obviously it depends if you've taken out power. If you've taken out power, then they're going to spawn randomly. But if you've damaged the hull section, then they'll spawn on that hull section somewhere. Now, there does appear to be a little bit of a pattern with some of them. So you'll see one next to the turbo lasers on either side. You'll see one on the platform just below the bridge. And you'll actually see one in the bridge itself, and then one on the neck, and then there's a few more that are dotted around all over the place. But I realized that doing this would take me way, way too long than it's worth. And then I was going to do it for the MC as well, but just didn't. I didn't bother. Here's where I kept track of everybody's ticket stats. So, and this, we'll get into the warm-up routine. This is just standard opponent research type stuff. As you can see, it's very well filled in. Very well filled in. This was an interesting experiment which failed massively. What I wanted to do is I wanted to try and actually get the squad to fly in some kind of formation. Most of the time this doesn't work because the game's not long enough and it's too hectic anyway. But I thought for certain situations, maybe openers and final attack runs and stuff like that, it would be good to do. It might confuse your enemy. You might be able to set up certain paths or dummies, fakes, things like that. And the ships here don't matter. It's just I wanted to illustrate the types of different formations that could be had, that could be created from a squad of 5. And there are many, many more options that you can do here. But maybe I'll figure that out later. If you saw formation flying in squadrons, I'd let you win. Well, one of the first things why I wanted to do formations with the cartel, and we only tried it once because I just got humped by a Y-wing for the whole bloody day. Thanks, Radiant. But the reason I wanted to do this was because I wanted to treat it like a drill where you learn to trust your teammates and you learn to be aware of them on the map. So especially in this formation 3 where you've got the top down, the flying V, as soon as you start to kind of like turn or rotate slightly, then everybody has to kind of follow, and the person in front has to be able to lead that. So I thought the theory behind it would be quite reminiscent of marching in the army, where you're doing one thing all as one, and you're trying to get to the same place together. It didn't work out that way, but the theory was at least there. Maybe I'll come back to that in the future, but yes, yeah, it would be really good with VR, yeah. But yeah, otherwise it's just you've got no idea what's going on. Yeah, I think A-wings and VR, yeah, that's what needs to happen. Or B-wings, B-wing formation where everybody like drops bombs in a kind of overlapping fashion would be funny as hell. this is my little corner of stuff. I have some notes on a Google Drive. I don't know what's in there, so I won't show you. That might be some super secret secrets. And it's got a lot of questions that have been answered. Oops. That helped us make a few decisions on how we approach our game. I won't get into those just yet. I'll save those as little Easter eggs for later on. And then before we get into a bit more meaty stuff, we've got Stardew's Thought Garden. I think this hasn't been touched since like January. This is brilliant. But we're essentially trying to create different strategies and approaches for defense phases with builds and setups, and offensive phases again with builds and setups. And then you'd have the different opening phases from each side as well. And then Lemming has done something similar over here with his thoughts. They are a lot more comprehensive than most of anybody else's, but they essentially go through the same thing. And they're all fun. They're all fun. Now, this is the thing that I mentioned over and over again in the Hutt Cartel. Some of them are not finished, but they are pretty funny. This is how... Will the board and the spreadsheet be available after the stream? I don't think the board will be, but I will post I'll post most of it, if not all of it, soon enough in a Reddit thread or something. So everything's all in one place. And that way anyone in the community, new or competitive, like top tier, can use it. Everybody is welcome. This is my section on drills. At one point or another, all these drills have been run by everyone in the cartel. This was part of my plan. I know you can't read it properly at the moment. I'll zoom in on the appropriate parts as we go through them, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on them first. My whole plan for the cartel was to essentially concede the first split. Essentially concede the winter and winter and spring split. Yeah. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to focus on the core mechanics of the game, so that by the time that we wanted to introduce the more aggressive and sexy strategies, that we'd already have the basics of the game down, so that we would be able to not focus on the basic elements of individual play and focus more on the team effort. So that's essentially what we did for the first half of this like 9 months journey that we've had so far. We focused on getting good as individuals, and we've continued to do that, but throw in some strategy and actually take it all the way in the second split and then onward into the championship. So it actually starts off really, really basic. And some of you might be thinking, why the fuck are we doing this? But this is really, really important. To be honest, this first drill is my favorite, because it highlights how well players can move, and it highlights where their leaks are. If they can fly around a map and not crash, then that's good. If they can't, as we've seen basically everyone at every level be able to make mistakes like this. Sometimes it's the pressure of the game, sometimes it's you're not feeling it and stuff like that, but doing these kind of drills means that you take that out of your C game. Like this becomes fundamental. This becomes so ingrained in the way that you move and the way that you fly when you're actually in the competition or when you're against the team, that you don't crash, because that makes the difference at this point. Because games last 3-4 minutes, which I don't personally like, it means that any mistake that is made is actually critical to the success of that phase and potentially the match. You die at the wrong time because you crash into something. That's really not good. That's really not good. So what I made the cartel do is you jump into a custom dogfight or a custom fleet battle. There's no AI. It's literally just on your own on a map. And you have to do this for every map that's in competitive rotation. So you don't have to do it for Xavier. But you would go in your primary competitive build, no meme builds, no weird things or anything like that. And the only thing that you would be doing is you would be practicing your movement, practicing your boost drifting and the various combinations of dead drifts and multi drifts, etc. after that. And all you're trying to do is not crash. You want to improve your awareness of everything around you so that you have a mental 3D image, a 3D map of what the map you're on looks like, so that way you know when to turn before you're making the turn. So a prime example of that is actually Galatan. You go through it and you know where the rocks are. You know those like little formations of little rocks? You know that as you boost and you drift around a certain rock, that those will be there. So you know that you'll be able to take a different approach going into it and then coming out of it, or whatever the case may be. But the point of it is to not crash on any map, in any position, unless you're ioned. That's a different situation. But this is just pure understanding the map and understanding where you sit in it. The most basic one, anyone could pick this up. The only thing that it takes is time. I mean, they all take time, but this will take the most time, because this is the one that's most important. And then, as we go down the list, we've actually got... What I tried to do was I tried to increase the complexity going through all of these drills. So it builds on the skills that you've previously had, and it helps you practice new ones. But it brings those together, which is really cool, so that you can apply everything, or you can try and apply everything all at once. So these next two, Calm Under Fire 2 and Calm Under Fire Advanced 3, this is where you jump. The second one, Calm Under Fire, is where you jump into a custom fleet battle with no AI. And by no AI, I mean no creep. And you fly your competitive build, you fly on all the maps, you set the hull and shields to 5x, and pilots are not allowed to shoot back. You don't really need to set it to 5x, but due to attrition and stuff like that, it's important to set things high, because you want to be in this drill for a long time. You want to be practicing this for a long time. And what you're trying to do here is much the same as the first drill. You're trying to master your movements in your primary build whilst under fire from an objective AI. Now, there's a couple of things from that you can go a little bit deeper with. The first is that you're trying to understand, in the same sense as the first drill, you're trying to understand a map of the object that you're trying to fly around. In this case, like a Nebulon B, a flagship, a cruiser, a raider even. Raiders are very useful in these kind of situations. And the second thing, I think I might have that as a second drill somewhere else, actually. Or not, I'm not sure. But the second thing for this is that you're trying to master shield skipping. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to recognize visually, as well as audibly, when you're being shot. And it's powerful because every time that you get shot, you can shield skip. And that's really, it's really fucking useful. You can sit there indefinitely when it's not out of phase. You can sit there indefinitely and shield skip, and you'll basically always be at full shield. Really, really cool. And then the third one is doing the same thing, but you've just got AI shooting back at you, or you have a mate trying to shoot you as well. And you can tag team this. So it's a great one for this is flying around the flagship, and you have somebody trying to shoot you, and you're trying to take the shield gens out, and you just practice that like for a while. You just practice it. So you're just one person on your own, and all you're trying to do is just shoot shield gens or something, and you've just got your mate there, and they're trying to shoot you back. So it's good for them because they get to practice chasing somebody who's attacking the flagship, and it's great for you because you get to practice more advanced shield skipping and noting when you're actually getting shot. And then a few more of these What Ion. That's just making sure that you've got a player with you to dunk you constantly, and it's just your whole job is just to master getting out of that, smashing that button as quickly as possible, so that you can get out of it as quickly as possible in that 2-second theoretical limit for it. And one for the, or two for the objective players out there, just practice your farm. Defensive farming and opening farm. With these specifically, it's important to note that on every map, the AI only appear to ever have 2 paths. Or 3, I guess, if you really want to think about it. But you've got the opening farm from both sides, right? And they follow that first path, okay? Like right around the middle, they're in the middle, and they're trying to just fly around there until somebody gets the upper hand. Everybody knows that. What I don't think everybody does know is that when you're on defense, the AI will move to that defensive line, which again, most, if not everybody, already knows. But what happens is the AI flight path when you're on defense doesn't actually change regardless of length of game. It's always the same. The only thing that does change is the position of the frigates, the cruisers, and the flagships. They get closer together, so it makes it look like the AI are moving when they're actually not. They're in the same place. So that means that as the game goes on, the farmers become safer and safer from offensive fire when they're on defense, because the frigates are further and further forward. And in some cases, like Yavin, where the flagships actually end up broadsiding each other, then the AI look like they're doing really weird, really funny paths, but they're actually in the same place. It's just that the flagships have got so close to each other that they need to face broadsides. And that's the same for every map. It's the same for every map. All the AI, they've got their initial opening phase paths, and then after that it's the same path for both sides. Each side has got one defensive line, or one AI defensive line. That's it. I mean, the only way that it differs is when you've got maps like Galatan, Nadiri, Fostar for the most part as well, where it takes them a while to get there, but they are in the same place. There's only one defensive line for the AI. Okay, moving on. The flagship one tap. Just go in and see how quick you can get the flagship down. Do this as a team, do this as solo, doesn't really matter. Death, especially if you're doing it solo, death after taking out both shield gens is acceptable, but what you really want to do is just not die at all. Saves you a lot of time, and that specific drill spawned out of the bullshit that came from the Twin Suns tournament. So yeah, there's that one. And then an interesting drill that spawned out of before the patch, I think. This was back in December? I think it might have been December. But you want to practice offensively farming. Just to extend those phases. It's pretty funny. You can use it as a meme strat, or you can actually incorporate it. So you could do like 3 TIE bombers, plus a ion torp on a TIE fighter. TIE fighter strips shields on the frigates. 1 bomber offensively farms, and the other 2 just deal damage, or try and PK or something. Just extends that phase. I mean, obviously the AI are only worth one point when you're on attack, but it still makes a difference. It still means that you're moving the goalposts essentially for the team that you're attacking. You're trying to force them to run out of auxiliaries a bit more, or make more mistakes. This whole game is just time and morale management. You do that right, you've won. Vanishing Raider open. This is just a straight gun for melting the Raider. It was quite an interesting strat 6 months ago, but given where we're at now with the current meta, it's kind of irrelevant. But the idea was that a single farmer would continue to farm, and the other 4 pilots in the team would melt the Raider in under 10 seconds. And that is doable. You can do it in under 10 seconds. You need beacons, but you can do it. Oh, that's where it is, yeah. I think, is that a duplicate then? No, we've got Calm Under Fire and What Incoming Fire. Basically the same thing. Hangar a second. I better get some love for the names of some of these, I'm not gonna lie. I better get some love. Hangar a second is just awareness of your teammates again. So when you just want to practice coming in and out of the flagship, just keep it as like a constant train. What you're trying to do is just make sure you don't bloody crash into each other on the way in and out. Simple stuff, but again, it makes the difference. It really makes the difference. And then frigate traffic jam, same thing. The interesting fact about the frigates and the cruisers, when you see the resupply cone, essentially, it's not a cone, it's a box. It is an actual cube. So you can not be in it and you're still resupplying. It is an actual cube. It is not a cylinder. It is not a cone. It is a cube. It is ridiculous. So yeah, one to watch out for. It means that, you know, you can be a lot more don't have to be as careful with it. What incoming fire advanced? Again, same thing, just practicing shield skipping. Peeling the banana. Which one was this? Custom fleet battles, no AI. Ship, 1 farm, 1 defensive fighter versus 1 jungle. Minimum 3 players. Primary purpose, jungle has to kill the farmer before the farmer can flip the phase from farming. Okay. So that's... No, peeling, peeling, peel, peeling the banana. Peeling the banana. Yeah, so this is number 14. Extremely important to note, we don't have PKs on the Hutt Cartel. A lot of you will sorry, a lot of you will not agree with that statement. Yeah, a lot of you will probably disagree with the statement of the Hutt Cartel does not have any PKs. It's true though, we don't. We don't have PKs. What we have are jungles and flexes. Now, our definition of a jungle is somebody who doesn't chase kills. What they do is they chase pressure and they chase the ability to shut down people, to make them make a mistake, to force them into a mistake. And we have a number of kind of tricks, and we have a number of different ways of doing that. Some of them we'll go into later. But for now, we don't have PKs, we have jungle. And it's important to note that that comes with a certain mindset as well. When you're a PK, your job is to get kills. But when you're a jungle, your job is not to get kills. It's a shift in mindset to become more useful to the team. And again, some of you will disagree with that, but that's what we do. This is one of my favorites. Catch the pigeon. I love catch the pigeon. Catch the pigeon is where a TIE bomber is on attack and they're flying around a nebulon. You can set them to like 5x. It doesn't really matter, but you can. Yeah, you can. You have 1 or 2 defending rebels, and you chase them, and you try and kill them or push them off. You're trying to force the bomber to make less mistakes. Sorry, to make more mistakes, and you're trying to force them to either crash or just reduce their damage output, basically. So that is one of my favorites because I'm the TIE bomber, so it's always a lot of fun for me. And again, another thing to note with basically all of these drills is that the ones that aren't solo drills, there's always there's always 2 or even 3 or 4 purposes to them. There's 3 or 4 ways of improving, because what we're saying is you'll have 1 person defending, 1 person attacking. It's good for both sides. So catch the pigeon, for example, the TIE bomber has to get good at evading whilst also trying to get damage output. The 1 or 2 defending rebels, they have to get damage output on the TIE bomber or force them off or force a mistake and generally track them, see if they can find a pattern in their movements and just destroy them. So it's always more than one thing going on at a time here. Off-phase training. Off-phase training. Sorry. That frigate looks tasty, and flagship for dessert. Set the shields and the hull of frigates or flagships to 0.1. If you can do that, then you can do it in a competitive game. A very, very simple drill here. Just if you can off phase a frigate at 10% effectively, whilst it's still got 10% shields as well, whilst it's still got all of its turrets up, then by the time that you actually get into a game and you realize that all the turrets have been taken out, one, you're a lot more confident to do it, and two, you can do it really fucking easy. Real easy. Obviously, there's certain like blind spots that you can use. The approach for Nebulons versus cruisers is going to be different, and the approach for MC versus ISD is going to be different as well. The ISD is a much, much easier, fatter target to out of phase. Point in case, I can do it in a Y-wing with rotary multi-lock and Goliath. Like, what the hell? That is something that you really shouldn't be allowed to do. But that was highlighted as a problem back in October, November, where you could engine park, and whilst it was slightly fixed back then, it's still, there's still not enough cover back there. Maybe it's just a standard design flaw in the ISD. Fucking stupid Imperial dogs, but hey ho. Opening farm race, again, one of my favorite ones. Not as high on my favorites list as the one after that, though. Opening farm race. So you just have a Y-wing, the TIE bomber, and you literally just race to see who gets the first couple of packs on the open. You only want to worry about the first one or two. You can set this up as a 2v2 or a 3v3 as well. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that, yeah, you're just trying to maximize, or sorry, yeah, you're trying to maximize the chances of winning the open by getting the most efficient lines to get there. Oh, Pacificus. Oh, Pacificus. A knife in my heart. No. To be honest, I completely forgot about this drill. Not gonna lie. Okay, and then the next one. One ICT to rule them all. Yeah, they are all Sheriff original names, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I expect some love for these names. I put a lot of effort into them. A lot of effort. I mean, the names were the hardest part. 100% the hardest part. So, one ICT to rule them on. Rule them all. One or two Empire pilots versus one Y-wing. The Y-wing must be ion cannon, ICT, and mines build. The Y-wing must win a 2v1. I mean, it's a bit of a meme, but it does mean that the Y-wing learns how to ICT properly, because I've seen so many people not use it properly. But then again, there's two different approaches to the ICT. The first is that you can aggressively go after people, and that works so well. That's so much fun. I've pissed so many people off doing that. But the other way that you can use it is more passively. So you're attacking a frigate or something, and then you just pop your ICT and it'll shoot whatever's closest. The interesting thing about the ICT is there's kind of like a ring above it. So if you're sat directly on top of a Y-wing, the ICT can't shoot you. Now, I'm not sure at the actual angle of that, but it's significant enough that at a few hundred meters, players can sit directly on top of a Y-wing and they will not get shot by ICT. So there's this kind of like cone type thing, if you will, that goes all the way around on the top, and then that's it, because obviously the ICT can't shoot below you. I like my support scrambled. Support versus flex. Support must be running scrambler shields, and it's just practice dunking. So again, the flex gets to practice dunking. Well, it's not really AoE, it's more like just the range that it can have. Well, not the range, sorry. The ICT's got a range of 1350. But the, or is it 1300? It's one of those two. But it's like a cone. Hang on. Okay, so this is your ICT, right? Little turret on top. And how do I draw a fucking circle? There we go. Okay, obviously it's not to scale, but say this outer circle is your 1350, 1300 meter range, right? So this is what... How in the fuck am I supposed to draw this? Oh god. Let's try this. So what you've actually got is you've got inside. It'll start off like there. And then what will happen is it'll go out and up. So if I drew it from the side, what you'd have is so this is your Y-wing. Obviously it's not to scale or anything. And then, so this would be your ICT. Where's the rubber? Rubber. Oh, fantastic. Right, so ICT, pop, pop, turret, turret, right? So if I change the color of this to blue, ICT range, so your ICT will cover 360 degrees around, right? And it'll cover only the top half of what it can see of the Y-wing, yeah. So if you actually consider the physics of the turret, then it can only really rotate on a very specific axis. So it can like rotate this way, and then it can look up slightly, right? So this would be rotating up, and that would be rotating around. Okay. So if we know that this is effectively the dome of the ICT, right? Where it can shoot anything inside this dome, assuming that there's no rocks and shit in the way, but that's fine. What we know is that the ICT can only point upwards to a certain amount. So this means that what you actually get is something closer to that. If you took like a slice through the middle, then this area would be your zone where you could actually fire your ICT. And this zone is where you can sit and not get shot by an ICT. The turret has line of sight, but much like a dog, it can't look straight up. Yeah, accurate as fuck. It's about as accurate as it gets. Okay, just a few more drills to go through then, and then we can start going into some of the strats, I guess. Tractor beam evasion, that's a good one as well. You're just trying to either not get locked by tractor beam, or you're trying to make sure that you can get out of it. Both of those options are good. You want to recognize when you're being locked, you want to evade whilst you're being locked, and you want to get out of the tractor beam as quickly as possible, whether that be a flagship or a player. You've got a sweaty retreat. This is a fun one as well. This is closer to kind of like high level stuff, where you've got between 1 and 2 players who are going to chase another player, and the idea is that the single pilot is currently on attack, and the other 2 pilots are about to flip the phase or have flipped the phase, and the previously attacking pilot needs to go back to defend their defense line, or they need to go back to get resupplies. So this is why it's called a sweaty retreat, because you've got 2 people on your ass and you need to get out of there alive. Then there was a default option. This is actually one of the strategies that we had a while ago, and this was kind of our default strategy. Just making sure that we took the raider, and we made sure that we took the AI when it was needed, and the morale. Again, it's just morale and time. Bomber under fire, time, and death trial. 1 bomber versus 5 AI in a custom game. Get the job done on the frigates and practice evasion whilst under significant pressure. Win the game. This can be expanded for all roles. So I wanted to try and push myself. And the way that I thought that would be quite interesting is actually by jumping into a game of a custom game against 5 AI on easy difficulty and see if I could win. And not win by letting passive damage do it all. By actually getting in there and getting as much done as you can before you die. And to my surprise, it was actually doable. I actually did it. I thought it was quite fun. And then I tried it on normal difficulty against 5 AI, and that shit is next level impossible for 1 person to do. It cannot be done. That shit's nuts. And I think that covers it for like the drills that were actually fully fleshed out. But then there was a chaff awareness training. That was just to make sure that we could see when people have chaffed, what their cooldown is, where they're chaffing, so that we know when to run torp runs and stuff like that. This is a really good one, actually, the suicide awareness training. So in certain situations, it's actually better to die on flagship attack or something than to come all the way back to defend. Now, sometimes you might have like an iron missile or something, and that's useful to get that off on the raider. But for the most part, what you're trying to do is just maximize the amount of time that you'll be up with a reasonable payload and reasonable health. And if you've just done an attack on a flagship, sometimes it's not... I mean, sometimes it is possible to retreat, but you'll be under fire whilst you're on retreat, and you've just used up a decent chunk of your ordnance doing damage to the flagship or shield gens or players or frigates or whatever. So it's just recognizing when is the best option, when is the best time to actually commit suicide, and if it is an option. Drill to shoot weak spots. It's basic, simple. Balance shields whilst having a conversion shield. this punishes you for not paying attention. So this one I thought was actually quite funny. So if I mean like, yeah. So if you've got shields, and someone's shooting you, and you don't balance those shields, and if you don't put those shields to where you're getting shot from, then it'll strip all of your firepower. So I thought that was an interesting way of punishing people for not balancing their shields. You could do it normally as well, because obviously they'll take damage, but I just thought that this was a little bit spicier, a little bit more fun. Chaff drills for frigates. Oh dear. For frigates and flagship systems. Again, pretty basic one. You just have a couple of people trying to do torp runs, and you're supposed to recognize when they're doing their torp runs, when they're going to fire them off, and when you're supposed to pop chaff to protect the objective. Evading missiles and fire while marked. Very important one. I'm still in the process of developing a concrete strategy for evading missiles in terms of like repeatable stuff. But at the minute, what seems to happen, or what I've seemed to notice, is if you bank hard at like 90 degrees, whilst the missile is like getting really, really close to you, then it'll just fire off into the distance and you're fine. But you really don't need to use chaff and stuff that often at all. Right, are we there yet? Endurance training, just set frigates and flagships to 5x. Communication, this is just practicing comms between team. I'm finishing Charlie, make the call, and the rest of the team will trust that teammate to get the job done. That's just making sure that you're doing what you're doing and that you know what your teammates are doing. ICTing on the cake, great. 1 to 2 players versus 1 to 2 ICT Y-wings. Practice ICT rotation to maximize time on target. This is practicing your aggressive ICT skills. And the other players who don't have ICT, it's their job to try and stick on the belly of the Y-wing so that they're not taking that incoming ICT damage. Yeah. Tractor beam destruction, just making sure that you pinpoint those and take those out. The Jordan dunk, practice dunking against dampener hull and scrambler shields. Yeah, so that's like worst case scenario to try and lock a bloody missile on. But it does mean that you've got to time it a lot more and you've got to track your target a lot better. So I think it's really, really beneficial to do that. The Greyhound and the Rabbit, I can't actually remember what I was planning for that. Drifty McShooty Jr. laser target practice whilst stationary against stationary objects whilst in a drift. Fairly straightforward. It's just laser training. Drifty McShooty Sr. laser target practice against players. So you've actually got moving targets this time. So again, it's just practicing that laser accuracy, maximizing your DPS, maximizing how much you can piss people off. Silent but deadly. Run a game but with everyone muted in Discord. This is to help your team understand each other more. So what you're doing is you're trying to use your ping system a lot more, and you're trying to trust your teammates to do what the strategy is for that moment. So the farmer will be farming, the support will be beaconing and getting resupplies out. The flexers will be securing PKs, and they'll have to negotiate that a lot tighter when comms aren't there. And then even if teams only did it once, I think that would be enough to highlight a lot of things for them. It's really quite interesting to see what comes out of that. It's really quite interesting, and I do suggest that every team, or anyone who's looking to join a team, does get that in at some point. Because if you want to come together as a team, then that is a key way on how to do that. And then, not finally, but finally in this column, we've got a morale awareness training. So it's just making sure that everybody on the team knows when the morale is looks like it's gonna flip, how much time they've got, what their ordnance is, and so being aware of the morale means that you can just make so many better in-game decisions, in that moment decisions, and it's really, really important because that obviously affects the rest of the team. And if you make the right decision at the right time, you can set up for, as an example, you can set up for a crazy good defense, or you can fuck it up and you got banned from the My Robot. I don't know about that, fun. We'll have to look at that again. I think it got moved or something a few times because we had to. But I've not touched this in a few weeks at least. We moved some of our strategies and things to the Discord. But yeah, morale awareness training. Make sure everyone on the team understands it and knows it. Triple friends. Oh, I called this triple friends because the TIE bomber has got 3 jobs. This was something that I really, really wanted to get in. We might still do, but essentially what you've got is you've got a TIE bomber who's got Goliath and multi-lock. And they focus on PK, right? And they only go for enemy farmers. They only go for the enemy farmers with multi-locks and lasers. And whilst the multi-locks are on cooldown, what they do is they attack the objective with the Goliath. And this feeds into the other drill that we had earlier where you take out the missile turrets on the frigates. And once you've done that, then you peel back for the farmers and you apply pressure on them again. So this would kind of be a jungle role, but in a TIE bomber, which is pretty fun. Live and opening. Some of you have seen it, some of you have not. The live and opening is where we essentially sacrifice the opening in order to get a double out of phase on the frigate shields. You can do this with Ion Torp and Ion Missile. Obviously, to have 2 flexes running Ion Torp and Ion Missile is a bit much, but what you can do is just have one person do it on one ship, on one frigate or cruiser, and then just get them to do it again before the phase flips. Before the phase flips onto attack for that team. It's not a phase, mum. Yeah, we'll get back to that one. Attacking against 5 ICT. Oh god, yeah. That was just funny. I don't really know what that was for. The bit bop opening against non-PK heavy teams, Empire only, 1 person live and opens, 3 TIE bombers farm, and 1 support with mask and resupply. So that was a bit frisky. We never got to test that, but still, bit of fun. Now you see me. Consider advanced maneuvers and flight paths where you are visible and maneuver and vulnerable for how long. So that was something that I didn't get around to either, but that was very specific for so say you're on an attack run for the shield gens on the ISD. What the Empire need to do in that situation is understand at what angles that ship can be shot from and maximize the time on target with that. And obviously from the other side of that, you've got, okay, well, this is the most direct approach to take the shield gen, but it also makes me the most vulnerable. So that either means I've got to be fast or I've got to be sneaky and take a different approach. And then a strat that I've had for a really long time, the triple opening farm with 2 or 3 TIE bombers and just smash the AI. This was supposed to be a chart of people committing to drills and stuff. And this was just a a chart on how we won the opens in the summer minor, or didn't win the opens in most cases. Oh god. Now we've got all this. And what I'm going to do is, we've gone through a lot today. I'm going to go through the rest of this at the weekend, because there's a lot to go through there. It doesn't, I mean, it looks like a lot, but it's even more when you consider that these diagrams are fucking tiny. There's lots and lots of stuff that have gone into this. Like, I did that little Y-wing diagram over here. We've got all of this kind of stuff to do, where you go into all of these angles and stuff like that. So I'll tell you what, we'll cover that on the weekend. I'll do another stream Saturday, same time. We'll go into that, and then I will also give you all the answers to the questions that I had here. But so far, anyone any questions or anything like that? Otherwise, I'll see you on Saturday, I guess. Yes, Hero 3, let's go. Yes, one day we will run that AI open with each other, Bacifus. We will indeed. We will indeed. All right. Much love, everyone. I'll see you on Saturday for another stream. I might do some smaller ones in between, maybe some Apex and stuff like that. But for now, yeah, that's gonna be it. All right. Take care, guys. See you later.